Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dan Beasley Show. Today's show is coming to you live from Hartsville, South Carolina. Time is 8:43 a.m. It's on Monday, July the 7th, the 22nd day of July on 2013. We welcome you to the show. This show is about contemporary issues in the news today, followed by commentary at the end and how we can make sense of all these things. I'd like for you to, first of all, get into the news today about some breaking news that the EU declares that the Hezbollah's military wing terror group um, is coming out of Brussels. The EU has placed the military wing of the Lebanese party Hezbollah on its terror list on Monday, and it's a major change of policy towards the region. The EU's 28 foreign ministries reached a decision unanimously at their monthly meeting, swiftly swaying the last nations that had any doubts. The blacklisting would mean imposing visa bans on individuals and asset freezes on organizations associated within the group. Moving on to our next story today. Back in the 1800s, the United States was in the midst of a gold rush mentality. And as a result, a lot of minerals were mined and discarded. Well, this article deals with gold rush era discards could fuel cell phones and TVs. It turns out that these discarded minerals are rare minerals that we depended upon other foreign countries to supply, and they held our feet to the fire, so to speak, with policy decisions and military decisions and things of that nature, where we saw these countries as being strategic towards our way of life. Well, this news article is coming out of Sacramento, California, through the AP Press, and it says across the West, early miners digging for gold, silver, and copper had no idea that one day something else very valuable would be buried in the piles of dirt and rocks that they tossed aside. There is a rush in the U.S. to find key components of cell phones, televisions, weapon systems, wind turbines, MRI machines, regenerative brakes in hybrid cars, and old mine tailing pipes just might be the answer. They may contain a group of versatile minerals, the periodic table, called rare earth elements. Uncle Sam could be sitting on a gold mine, says Larry Meinart, director of the Mineral Resource Program for the U.S. Geological Survey in Reston, Virginia. The USGS and the Department of Energy are on a nationwide scramble for deposits of the elements that make magnets lighter, bring balanced hues to fluorescent lighting, and color to touch screens of smartphones in order to break the Chinese stranglehold on these supplies. They were surprised to find that the critical elements could be in plain sights and rubbles, otherwise considered eyesores and toxic waste. One era's junk could be another era's treasure. And those that were almost never analyzed for anything other than what they were mining for, Meinhardt says it turns out to be valuable and that it's a win-win on several fronts, getting us off our dependence on China and having a resource we didn't know about. The 15 rare earth elements were discovered long after the gold rush began to wane or wind down, but demand for them took off over the last 10 years as electronics became smaller and more sophisticated. They began with the number 57, lanthanum, and end with periodic table 71, lithium, which is a group of metallic chemical elements that are not rare as much as they are just difficult to mine because they occur in tiny amounts and are often stuck to each other. Unlike minerals higher up on the periodic table, such as silver and gold, there's no good agent for dissolving elements so closely linked in atomic structure without destroying the target. Makes mining them tedious and expensive. And it says these have not been explored in the U.S. because as long as China was prepared to export enough rare earths to fill the demand, everything was fine. But like with the oil cartels, when China began to use them as a political tool, people began to see the vulnerability of the U.S. economy to having one source of rare earth minerals. And that was putting all of our eggs in one basket. Um, Ian Ridley, the director of the USGS Central Mineral and Environmental Resources Science Center in Colorado, says 2 years ago China raised prices. In case of neodymium used to make Prius electric motors stronger and lighter, from $15 a gram in 2009 to $500 a gram in 2011. While dysprosium oxide used in lasers and halide lamps went from 114 a gram in 2010 to 2,830 in 2011. It's about time for China to cut off supplies to China, maker of the Prius, in a dispute over international fishing territory. So China has been wielding its political strength on the basis that it has these rare earth minerals that the U.S. and the rest of the world needs. However, we find that we are awash and we're full of these minerals here on our own terra firma, or Earth. Moving on to our next breaking news story. The palace emails world's media that the royal baby is about to be born, and this was coming out of the news outlet yesterday. It's the second update. Long wait may soon be over for the international mob in front of St. Mary's Hospital in West London. Now that the Duchess of Cambridge is reported there in the early stages of labor with the royal baby. The UK and international broadcasters, including crews from ABC, NBC, and Fox, have been mobilized for weeks for the infant's arrival. Kate Middleton's first with Prince William, aka the Duke of Cambridge, Kensington Palace formally alerted media by email at 7:30 a.m. Monday, London time, and the Duchess of Cambridge is in labor. She traveled by car from the palace to St. Mary's with her husband. The BBC says there will likely be no news until the official announcement of the birth. But expect endless online speculation about the baby's unknown gender until then. If it's a girl, the child will make history, becoming the first female firstborn of a future monarch to take precedence over a new brother. In the news today also, Obama is deploying drones around the United States. The deployment of federal drones in and around the United States shores represents one of Obama's administration's next steps in the nation's expanded use of unmanned aircraft systems for surveillance purposes. The Office of the National Marine Sanctuaries, or the ONMS, recently acquired Puma UAS, a type of drone that the U.S. Navy also uses for operations off the coast of Los Angeles. ONMS is now enlisting contractor support in expanding UAS use in California, Hawaii, Florida, and Washington state. Vendors experienced in working with law enforcement and military personnel are needed for this endeavor, according to a solicitation that W&D WorldNet Daily located through routine database research. The Puma drones, which are small enough to be launched by hand, will be used by ONMS to enforce federal regulations. Moving on to our next story. Whether the people are aware of it or not, since 1997 and to cars made today, black boxes have been placed underneath the front seats of cars, and they keep up with your speed and your braking and your steering positions and whether or not you what pressure you were applying, and what the speed of the vehicle was, whether or not you were speeding, the GPS location, also whether or not uh, you had conversation going on in the car at the time. So they have delayed the announcement of this for a considerable amount of time. The Canadians, they got wind of it first, and they had a fit over it. I don't know what the outcome of it was, but anyway, there's a federal requirement now saying all cars are supposed to be equipped with black boxes by 2014, and you can better believe the insurance companies are going to make use of this. And the news is coming from the New York Times. It says 96% of all new vehicles sold in the United States have the boxes. Any of the cars that were made prior to 1997, of course, don't have the boxes. And in September 2014, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has its way. If it has its way, all will have them. The boxes have been long used by car companies to assess the performance of their vehicles, but data stored in the devices is increasingly being used to identify safety problems in cars and evidence in traffic accidents and criminal cases. And the trove of the data inside the cars have raised privacy concerns, including questions about who owns the information and what it can be used for, even as critics have raised questions about its reliability. Federal regulations, law enforcement authorities, and insurance companies, the data is an indispensable tool to investigate crashes. So there you have it, folks. You have it first coming from us. And this is coming by way of the New York Times. However, it is old news that has yet to be reported. So now it's been reported through a national outlet. Looking at our next news item, how the CIA black ops teams are hacking into computers worldwide. This is coming from a source called Policy Mike. And in a detailed account on foreign policy, the CIA, or the Central Intelligence Agency, in concert with the National Security Agency, or the NSA, has been demonstrated to conduct what is referred to as black bag operations, or the manual hacking of a target's computer by uploading software onto anything ranging from personal laptops to large-scale servers. When a specific target is out of the NSA's reach, it calls on the CIA to do it in its own parlance and a surreptitious entity. In such an operation, a crack CIA team breaks into the place of interest and does one of the following. Depending on the situation, it installs spyware, bugs phones, it hacks data switching centers, and copies backup files and disks, in a procedure often used when hacking remotely is not necessary. Having already conducted over 100 such operations in a rate that, according to Matthew Aid, has not been seen since the Cold War, and targets are not as narrow as one might think. In addition to governments, foreign governments and militaries, multinational corporations and individuals with terrorist ties have been hacked as well. From a regional perspective, everyone is a target. Operations have been undertaken in East Asia, particularly China, the Middle East, and South Asia. For example, would be the tapping of their fiber optic cables at a switch center in a certain South Asian country, allowing the NSA to listen in real time to highly sensitive communications. This was also in addition to the NSA bugging of foreign embassies in Latin America and Western Europe. In addition, various European Union offices in Washington and New York, while the former are areas of strategic importance, the latter has caused much outrage since they are supposedly the allies to the United States. And the question being raised is, how important are such operations to national security, or is it more unethical, wanton spying? Considering how old the art of espionage is, or that these operations are a modernization of what was done in the Cold War, it should not come as a complete surprise that the CIA still conducts these operations. While it is surprising at